Coming soon to own on video and DVD.
Can you introduce yourself for this interview?
Yes, I am Jonathan. You can call me John. I'm a tech insurance expert. That's kind of like my whole life. And I knew that since I was a kid. I always knew I was different than the other kids. I mean, they were playing with their iPods, dancing to the music. I was reading the terms and conditions of iTunes, and I was writing them on the inconsistencies. And even Steve Jobs reached out. He was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "We don't even read these." But from there on, I knew it was a lifelong passion. Okay, insurance. Fun, riveting topic, I know. Nothing like fine details, paperwork, terms and conditions. But look, it's gotten out of hand. You can't buy tech anywhere without being offered insurance. I was at Target the other day, got a $10 toaster, and they asked if I wanted a 2-year coverage on it. Let's talk about it. I'm going to try and cover the full spectrum here because there's a ton of options, and it's because there's a ton of money to be made in this space. I can't cover everything. I'm not going to dig into the nitty-gritty on AppleCare on every single product or like the Canon Care Pack. I just don't have time. I'm going to try and give you general guidelines so when you're making a purchase decision, you can make the best decision for you no matter where it's at. First thing I would recommend, and as you always should be with big companies like this, is be skeptical. And for one, these companies have very, very smart people who are in their corner working for them, and they are actuaries. And what they do is they look at all the science, all the statistics, and all the facts, and they know how likely it is something is to happen and not happen. So they are setting a price that ensures that the company is making fat profit on insurance. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad value for you, but you should know from the default, it is already kind of stacked in their favor as far as the money and the profit goes. And they're going to push it really hard because they make so much money. If you want to play a game, go to the Apple Store, and every time they bring up AppleCare, take a shot. You will not be good to drive home. I can guarantee it. But again, it doesn't mean it's bad value. Just be incredibly skeptical because they're stacking all the stats and all the favors in their favor. You can do the same too. You can look at the facts and you can stack it in your favor as well. Before I get into it, let me tell you a quick story. I worked in tech sales for 3 years selling all sorts of tech. And one time I was selling this very nice guy a phone, and it was part of my job. I was at the point where I had to bring up insurance, and I was giving him all his options. And he looked at me and he said, "I can't buy that. I am a Seventh-day Adventist, and it is against my religion to gamble, and I feel that this is against my religion. I can't purchase this." And I thought about it. And I kind of laugh because he's absolutely right. Insurance is totally just a form of gambling. You are putting money down that in the event that something bad happens, you're in a more favorable position. So yes, if you buy this expensive insurance and something happens, you'll be good. But if nothing ever happens, you might as well have used that money as firewood to stay warm. And before I get started one more time, I'm going to interrupt myself one more time. And that is that be aware that they're going to be pushing this insurance on you, whether it's on the website or whether it's a salesman in person, or it could just be the checkout screen at Target. It doesn't really matter. Most of the time, you actually have an option to add that insurance, sometimes up to a year later. And just know that, because if you're running, you're like, "Oh, I got to go pick my mom up from the airport after I buy this phone." Don't feel like you have to make a multi-$100 decision right there on the spot. If you want to go home, sleep on it, eat some food, get some water, do whatever you got to do to make a good decision, you can do it. Which does kind of lead me into my first point, is in my 3 years of selling tech, more than once have I seen people buy a phone, not even get to their car before they break it. So the first thing is know yourself. And like I said, one of the most important things is to be honest and know yourself. I mean, you've been alive, you make adult decisions. Do you break stuff? Are you clumsy? If yes, statistically, this insurance is way more likely to be of use to you. And likewise, I know it's so obvious, but if you don't break stuff, probably stay away. Like a good case or a screen protector might be all you need for your expensive device. And, no matter where you fall, don't think any less of yourself. Fun story. No, actually, painful story. In all my years living and buying tech, I have yet to own a phone or a laptop that I haven't ultimately destroyed catastrophically. I'm not proud of that, but in my defense, I have yet to break a camera. I did break a drone. But see, on the other end of that spectrum is my partner. She's very responsible, and she's not broken all but her most recent phone. And because she hasn't bought the insurance on any of those previous devices, even with that most catastrophic damage on the last phone, she's still in the green if you add up the $200, $300 worth of insurance she should have bought on all those phones. She still comes out mathematically ahead on the company as far as cost is concerned. And that drone was actually a rough story. I seriously was taking the drone off, and I hit a tree on takeoff, and there was such a big group of people in front of me, and I'm like picking the bits up, trying to keep it together, just throwing it in my bag. And then I just like take photos with my regular camera like nothing happened. I was crushed inside. Just be honest with yourself. I know for myself personally, it's when, not if. And for my partner, I know it's a freak fluke if it happens. And just be honest with where you fall. The second thing to consider, because if you're the biggest, the second biggest is what you're actually buying. And what I mean by this is if you're buying a phone, your phone is going to spend 99% of its life in your pocket and on your person. So it's just more likely to be experiencing some freak accident, like you get a little too drunk at the bar and knock it off the bar, or you leave it on your lap in the car and you hop out and you throw it on the concrete. That stuff happens, especially when it's on you all the time. Whereas if, let's say, you buy a desktop or a TV, shy of having kids or a cat, what's really going to happen to that device? I mean, yes, sometimes people are moving furniture, stuff happens, but it's just way less likely to happen. And usually the price of the insurance will reflect that likewise. If it's a device that's more sedentary, it tends to be cheaper. But even with that, why would you buy insurance if it's not likely to happen? Just be honest with what your house looks like and what the use of that device looks like and where it's going to be and what it could be subjected to as far as freak accidents go. So what is the device? And look, once you've looked at the biggest factors, which I would say is you and the product you're actually insuring, is to actually look at the nitty-gritty details of the insurance and what that entails. And you should be your biggest advocate, and I will tell you why. First, two types of people you'll see in the sales world, especially in tech. Some people are commission-based, and some people take that to the worst extreme. And they will be incredibly pushy and go as far as to outright lie about what's actually covered with the insurance. And second, you will have incompetent workers who are just too lazy to actually go ask a manager or verify what's covered with your question. And you should just be your biggest advocate because, to be honest with you, it's not their problem when you break your device. The first thing you should know about the insurance you're buying, and you would be surprised how many people don't know this, is who the hell you bought the insurance from. One of the most common could be the person who actually made the device. So if you go into an Apple store, they're going to try and sell you on AppleCare. You buy a camera from Canon, they're going to sell you the Canon Care package. That's from the manufacturer who's actually making the device. Sometimes the retailer will actually try and sell you insurance. So it could be Best Buy with their Geek Squad insurance, where they didn't make anything, but they're just a retailer with capital and they're willing to insure your product. The third could be that the retailer contracted an insurance company to cover devices, just based on value. This would be like when you go to Target and they ask if you want the Allstate insurance on your air fryer. Probably not your best option, to be honest with you. And the fourth could be some credit cards will actually cover devices for a certain period of time after purchase, as well as you can go out of your way and get a personal articles / business insurance package. I'm sorry, I really know it's a ton of options. But the reason it's really important to know this is because that is who you're going to be dealing with in the event that something bad happens. And yes, the money you save is great, but also the time and the sanity is worth a lot. If you insure something and it breaks and you're stuck on 1-800 numbers for 4 days just trying to get someone to reply or send you anything, that's worse than anything. And it's one of the most valuable resources you have is time and sanity. And just know who you bought it from. You'd be surprised how many people are like, oh, do you have this insurance? It's like, oh, I think so. And it's like, no, you actually bought some weird Amazon insurance. So just know who you're buying the insurance from because that's who you'll be dealing with. And if you don't know what their reputation is, go on Reddit. They got plenty of people. People love on the internet to complain more than anything. If people had a bad experience, they will tell you. So look it up and know who you're buying it from. And it's also good to know the reputation of the company you're working with because if it's a bad company, they are more likely to make a gray area issue not their problem. If you come in and you're like, hey, the volume button on my phone keeps sticking. And they're like, I don't know, that's not catastrophic. You'll be fine. Just I don't know, live with it. That's not fun either. So if you're paying for something, you want to get covered, stick with reputable people. A big thing you can ask if you don't know is just what does that process look like if there's a salesman you're working with, or usually the FAQ page will have something. Are you able to just go in the store and they'll swap it? Do you have to mail it in to them? Do you have to call 1-800 number? Can you go into a physical location? You just need an appointment? Know what that looks like because it will save you a lot of time and sanity if you just think about it beforehand. And insurance is definitely a case of whoever costs the most money isn't always necessarily the best experience or best value. For example, typically whoever provides the insurance from the manufacturer side, it tends to be one of the more expensive options. If you buy AppleCare or the Canon Care pack, it's more expensive, but that process tends to be a little more seamless and enjoyable. but less doesn't always mean like horrible and terrible. Perfect example. When I bought my Canon gear, I could have bought the Canon Care Pack stuff, and it was like $400 to $500 a pop, depending on the gear it was. And that's kind of a lot of money. Whereas I just ended up going through State Farm and doing a personal articles package. It's like $100 a year. And I just know that it's way less likely that I'm going to damage my camera gear. And if I do, I don't think the process is that much worse, not like 5 times the price worse. So just know that worse isn't always way worse, and spending the most isn't always the best idea. And I know this is one of the most boring ones. It was my least favorite class, but do the frickin' math, okay? If you're gambling, know what you're gambling. I can tell you one of the worst examples I've ever seen. Just because they offer insurance does not mean it is a good choice at all. Perfect example. Apple sold the Apple Watch Series 3 for like 2 years longer than they should have. And the final year 2 is on sale. I think that watch was on sale for $150. There was optional AppleCare for $50. But in the event that you damaged it, there was a $50 deductible. So you were essentially spending $50 extra to maybe save $50 in the event that it was damaged. Like, those just aren't good odds. That'd be like if you went to a casino and you're like, I'm going to put $1,000 on black. And they're like, all right, if you win, you get $1,005. Like, why would you do that? It's not smart. But on the other side, like, absolutely, I had a friend who just, his transmission just went out. He saved like $7,000 on that. And American trucks, they don't make them like they used to. But look, that's an extreme example because I know cars is like one of the most expensive pieces of tech you can get. But just do the math. Look if there's deductibles and add up all the cost. See if you actually stand to save that much money if things go wrong. Sometimes you'd be surprised. You're actually putting a lot of money down to save almost nothing. And the final thing here, and this is going to be really broad. I apologize. I know it's just there's so many lines of terms and conditions. You can't put it all in one, but just know the details. And the biggest one I can say here is actually know what's being covered. You should never assume that what you would assume is covered because it's probably not. Perfect example. You'd be blown away how many insurance packages that they like look and they market it like it's insurance, but it's really just a warranty extension. You're actually not covered against any kind of damage or anything. And on top of that, a lot of times theft and loss, not covered at all. I've seen water damage not be covered before. And another one that happens too is a lot of times you have to bring a significant amount of the device back to them. So if you do something stupid like leave your phone on the top of your car and drive away and your phone's in like 1,000,000 bits, they'll be like, this is too catastrophic. We can't identify the device. Just know what you're actually covered against and don't assume anything because there's a good chance you're not covered. And because I'm trying to not be too cynical, know the details can also be in your favor on the positive side, which is they're trying to make these packages as enticing as they humanly can. And so they will put little fun perks in there sometimes, and you should know about those so that you can get the most out of what you've purchased if you have purchased it. Perfect example, if you buy like the Canon insurance, it covers like 1 professional cleaning a year. And like AppleCare, I think, gives you like a free battery change if you fall below a certain battery health. Should you buy them because of that? No, absolutely not. But if you're paying for them, you should absolutely take advantage of every perk you get. So just know the details and don't assume anything's covered. For me, this was very personal because I actually had a deep hatred for the whole insurance dichotomy. I like I said, I worked in tech for 3 years, and these companies care about nothing more than how much insurance you can sell. Seriously, like you'd go above and beyond. You'd have someone come in with vision impairment and you'd like take the extra time to set their phone up so it actually worked for them, or pair it to their hearing aids, or do all this stuff. You get a manager come over like, oh, that sale took a while. Like, what happened? Like, oh, explain why. Like, oh, that's great. Did you sell them the insurance? And you're like, oh no, like they really weren't that interested. And they'd be like, you suck. You're the worst. Like, you really need to get your numbers up. And seriously, they did not care about anything more than that. Like, that was the end all be all of whether a sale was a good sale if you sold them insurance. And it grinded my gears so much, it got to the point where I just had to leave that field. It wasn't fun anymore. And it's a shame because I really like talking to people about tech, and it was a lot of fun working with the community in that fact and getting people the best experience. And I say this because if a salesman brings it up, it is their job. Don't automatically be too hard on them. They might hate having to bring it up more than you do. And you know what? They might be a scummy salesman. There's a lot of salesmen who care about their own self-interest more than anything. They're happy to load your grandma up with a wireless charger, insurance, and AirPods that she doesn't need. And yeah, those people suck. But that's why it's your job to be educated and know the facts and make the best decision for yourself. And The funniest thing to me about the insurance and how important it is for them to sell it is I always laugh at the conundrum that companies put themselves in, which is like, you'll see the truck commercials where they're like, this is the toughest truck that we have ever built, the whole toughest truck in the whole world. Or like the Apple commercials where they're like, we made the most invincible glass that has ever been conceived. And you're like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to go buy a new whatever. And then you're in the store and the salesman's like, yeah, well, glass is glass and, crap happens and you should buy this, very expensive insurance. And I laugh that the companies have to do both at the same time, which is like, be like, this is the best, toughest thing ever. And then also be like, but, it could break and, you might be an idiot. So buy the insurance. And I laugh at that conundrum that they have to deal with. And, people love to get really funny about the right to repair stuff. And I actually think one of the worst things they do regarding that is that I think a lot of companies really bloat the cost of repair to make the insurance seem more reasonable. Because it's like, all right, you crack your phone. It's $600-$700 to fix your screen. It's like, wow, that's ridiculous. It's like, oh, yeah, don't spend $600-$700 to fix your screen. Buy this $200-$300 insurance instead so that if it does happen, you're not screwed. And I actually think that's a big reason why some of these repairs are so expensive. And not that they're making profit from the repairs, but that they really want to drive people to buy the insurance because there's very fat margin there. I also laugh because in my anecdotal experience, I always felt, not like every time, but I always felt like the opposite people who were supposed to buy insurance and the people who don't, or the people who did. And what I mean by this is like, you get someone who's like so obviously like a type A, very careful personality. And they're like, you know what? That is a great decision. I should buy the insurance so that if something bad happens, I'm in the right situation. And they go 10 years and never break their phone. And then you get the guy who's like, God, man, your phones suck. They're so cheap. I just broke like my 5th one. And it's like, all right, do you want to get the insurance this time? And he's like, no, what do you think? I am a sucker? And it's like, all right. So, I mean, I just laugh at that anecdotal experience of, I just feel like the wrong people do and don't buy stuff sometimes. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because I think a lot of people make purchases from an emotional standpoint, but you should really just look at the facts and make the best decision based on money and not, oh, I'm an insurance person or I'm not an insurance person. Just analyze everything and do the best thing for you. Look, I ask you to be incredibly cynical and give these companies hell because they deserve it and you should be. They're trying to rip you off a lot of the times. But on the other hand, I have to be honest. I know myself. I buy a lot of insurance. I have bought insurance on almost every phone I've bought, every laptop I've bought, and it's actually come out very favorable for me. And on the other end, especially with my camera gear, I'm a really anxious person. Like, I'm always freaking out. Like, it starts to drizzle. I'm like, oh my God, is my camera okay? And like, when I got the insurance, it's like $100 a year. I can just be chill. Like, it's like, okay, it starts raining while I'm taking photos. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to take photos, keep doing my thing. And if something happens, I have a backup plan. I was smart enough to plan ahead. And it's actually been very beneficial for me. So I say all this as someone who does actually buy a lot of insurance. I wanted to make this video because I see a lot of people buy insurance who maybe don't necessarily need it, but they get bullied by the salesman and they're just agreeable, nice people. Or I see people who are stubborn and kind of stupid and probably should buy insurance. And, not stupid. Stupid's probably a little harsh. No one's stupid, right? But don't go on Twitter if you think that's true. I just say this because I want people to have the best experience they can. And the pushing of tech insurance has honestly gotten out of hand. I'm going to tell you right now, first thing I said, went to Target, bought a $10 toaster. Do not buy the insurance on a $10 toaster. If your $10 toaster kicks it, buy another $10 toaster. But that being said, seriously, don't make emotional purchases when it comes to insurance. These companies are doing the math. They're stacking the facts. You should do the exact same thing and weigh it as much as you can in your own favor and shop around, and you have time to make these decisions. You don't have to get bullied by the salesman while you're there. And, if it's a good fit, buy it. If it's not a good fit, skip it. If you go 10 years and never break anything and break one thing, you're probably statistically, mathematically ahead as far as finances are concerned. I hope that helps. Do or don't buy insurance. I don't really care. But, yeah, love tech. That might be my best organic outro ever. But real talk, I shoot a lot of photos. That's like my favorite thing in the whole world. So if you want to do something really cool, check out my website, check out my photos. Maybe let me know what you think of them. If you take photography, anything, I actually really love to check that out. So like link your Instagram, your website, whatever. I will do my best to check it out. On the flip side, I do have this YouTube channel that you're watching this on. If you want to subscribe, like this video, check out my other stuff. I will make more content, so I hope you like it. On top of that, I have a newsletter. So if you want to see what I'm up to, I do off-roading, big hikes, stuff like that. I just like to talk about that, my creative process, what I'm working on. Go sign up for that. I send it once a month. I don't spam you, and I try to make it worth your time. But thank you for watching. I don't know how long this video is, but I really appreciate your time. I really try to take it not for granted and make things that help you. I hope this helps. Have a great day. Bye.
Killed it.